LP is the shortened and more dominant name for El Producto, which is also a stage name for an American rapper, songwriter, and producer from New York. He is regarded as being a driving force in alternative hip hop. He joined a hip hop trio, in fact, was part of founding the hip hop group Company Flow in 1992. They dissolved amicably in 2001 after a couple of albums, and since then he has released 6 solo albums. Hi, my name is Dan. So this was the first solo album by LP. It was recorded in his bedroom, and it's my first encounter with this album and with him. So I was completely new to it. I didn't actually know what to expect from his name, but I can most definitely say that this is hip hop. It's, yeah, there's no real doubt about that. It's got beats, drum patterns that are repeated with accompanying sounds and rapping. And as a general kind of note, I didn't like it, and I'm not sure it's going to be a huge surprise to anybody who was getting to know my taste through watching these videos. So the backing is, and I find what the backing is like to be quite pivotal in whether I like hip hop or not. I felt like the backing was not very musical. There are occasions when you can kind of get the idea of a chord sequence or something like that. It's generally aggressive and noisy. The worst of it was a kind of constant, with a slight variation, machine noise that goes all the way through one track, as if he's kind of had this machine running and just decided to keep recording it. It's quite overdriven and dirty at times. It's quite minimal in some ways. There was little in the way of grooves that I enjoyed. That's another thing that will attract me to some hip hop, is if I get, if there's a nice groove that I feel I'm getting into. So musically, backing, not a fan. Okay. Right, let's talk about the rapping. So the rapping's quite fast. It's often doubled or maybe even more than that. Sometimes they're slightly out of time with each other. I think that's probably on purpose rather than just sloppiness, but that makes it often harder to understand what's being said. He does seem to have unlimited air in his lungs, although I suspect maybe he does that by overdubbing. I am always quick to say that I am far from an expert or even particularly knowledgeable about hip-hop and rap. In my or to my ears, let's say, he sounded similar in style to Eminem, who is obviously someone who's been hugely successful as a rapper. The subject matter's quite varied. Actually, I would also give it credit for saying that the backing sounds have got a certain amount of variety to them as well. So mixed in, as well as stuff that is quite aggressive, some stuff that's explicit and implicit sex references, definitely violence references, and I think some drug references in here as well. There's also in here kind of literary references and kind of sci-fi and fantasy allusions going on here. So that side of it is, I'm going to maybe give it a bit more credit because of that. The track that I liked is a relative word, is Stepfather Factory. So I have read up about him and about his history, and I understand that Stepfather Factory is kind of somewhat related to some of his own upbringing, but is a kind of fantasy thing about making robotic stepfathers, and I could mostly follow that track. So I felt that it was reasonably inventive and interesting. The track that I liked least was the one with the hum that I talked about before, which is a track called Accidents Don't Happen. There was another track which had a line about biting people's faces, which bemused me somewhat, but definitely felt like it was quite aggressive. Of course, it's aggressive if somebody's talking about biting faces. I'm struggling a bit to find bits that I'm happy to put at the start and end of this. mostly because of the mixture of bad language and the stuff that he's talking about. I think if you like alternative hip hop, which is what this is labelled as, or underground hip hop, which I guess it might be, or indie hip hop, you might call it. If you like this sort of thing, then you might be very happy to know that there's 70 minutes of it. For me, that 70 minutes was quite an endurance to go through, and I did listen to it twice all the way through. Sometimes there are things that I find so difficult that I actually give up and only have one listen. I did dedicate myself to listen to this twice. That doesn't, I'm not trying to justify the fact that I don't like it by the fact that I listened to it twice. It's just my dedication to my art. So I didn't like it. That's my opinion. I'd love to know what you think, so please talk to me through the comments box. That's it from me for now.
I'm gonna build a step on the latest in technology. Step on the